Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randirhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little lamb.
The fall. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your
He
mind.
was asked tonight why he didn't speak out about the moments that were central to President Trump's impeachment. And here's his response. He said, the threat of possible legal action by the executive branch. You buying that?
No. I mean, that just sounds absolutely absurd. What possible legal action could there be unless he's talking about his book and he's concerned that they're going to continue to hold up his book? Other than that, I don't know what possible action they could take. He could have spoken out at any point. He could have told exactly what happened. If Trump really had an executive privilege to assert, he could have tried that. But I don't see what John Bolton would have said that would have in any way impugned executive privilege. I mean, what they were talking about was criminal activity. It was an extortion, bribery scheme relating to Ukraine, using taxpayers' money to try and get the Ukrainian president to announce an investigation into Joe Biden and his son. That was illegal. Privileges are broken when you start talking about illegal activity. So I think that is a bogus excuse.
Of course, because I keep telling you, there's a crime fraud exception for any privilege that the president or anybody tries to exert over a witness. If you are participating or know of a crime, or if there is a fraud being perpetrated upon the government or upon another individual, the president of the United States cannot exert any privilege to, participate in or cover up crime, criminal activity, or a fraud. So here's the question for today. What do you think of Bolton? What do you think of this man? History knocked on his door. Hey, John, Senate's calling. House was calling before that. Need for you to testify about what it is that Donald Trump was doing to President Zelensky in the middle of a hot war against Russia in Ukraine. You told everybody, go to the lawyers. They did. Fiona Hill went to the lawyers. Tim Morrison went to the lawyers. Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman went to the lawyers, based on you telling them to go to the lawyers because you were watching crime and fraud. So now all of a sudden, John Bolton is on the, hey, it's why don't you just call it the phony executive privilege college campus tour? Because that's what he's doing. He was at Duke University yesterday, and he's trying to tell you that he can't answer any of the probative questions because the president, has some, the president has exerted some pressure on him. And so instead, read my book. That makes no sense. It makes no sense. Except that John Bolton is doing this for profit. This is the F you pay me version of governance, okay? This is that scene out of Goodfellas. Oh, so now you can go to Paulie for anything you need, but remember, now you got to pay Paulie is not every month. So, you had a fire? F you pay me. Oh, business is bad? F you pay me. This is John Bolton. He's an F you pay me kind of a guy. This is really vile. This is really disgusting. The president has never exerted executive privilege over John Bolton, probably because he was counseled that he can't, because there is no executive privilege in the commission of a crime or a fraud. So at Duke University, Peter Feaver, who was a professor at Duke, he was, let's say, moderating, emceeing, whatever you want to call it, a Q&A with John Bolton last night. And so one of the questions that was asked of John Bolton was, does Trump believe the July 25th call with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was perfect? And John Bolton's answer was, you'll love chapter 14. Oh, F you, pay me. See what I mean? Then he said, did he discuss his differences of opinion with Trump on North Korea policy before taking the job, meaning Bolton? He said, well, I'd be happy to answer that question, except part of this is now involved in the pre-publication review of my book. Meaning the president is extorting John Bolton. And I told you, one of the things, listen, I want to finish this about the Q&A with John Bolton, but then we'll talk about something that I've been saying. Then another question was, what was it like to staff the president's disastrous July 2018 Helsinki meeting with Vladimir Putin? Bolton's answer, I could read a chapter from my book here and give you the answer to that question. He could, but he didn't. Was Trump more aggressive on Venezuela policy than you were? The tweet's out there, he says. I say things in the manuscript about what he said to me. I hope they become public someday. He tweets, but I can't talk about it. How fair is that? And the professor from Duke University points out to Bolton, you can talk about it right now. And then he joked, this is a safe space. And Bolton, first of all, I have to tell you the part that the media isn't reporting, that the audience, the people who were given tickets to attend this event on the campus of Duke, they were given tickets. They were distributed. They groaned until they couldn't groan anymore, and then they walked out because they know that he had a moment where history was calling his name, and he said no. And now he wants to sell a book. It's disgusting. That said, I have been telling you, if John Bolton's book is being suppressed or censored by the White House, then free speech is dead in this country. Because free speech is only, the First Amendment only applies to government interference in your right to speak, assemble, whatever, right? Political speech, the most protected from government intrusion. Doesn't mean your employer can't tell you can't curse at work. Okay? Doesn't mean your employer can't tell you can't call that girl a C word. Doesn't mean that you can't have language restrictions in various other settings, like Twitter. Can't harass, can't threaten death, violence, unless you're the president, because Jack Dorsey said so. There's a carve-out, you know, a carve-out for Republicans who threaten other people's lives or threaten war or threaten to, put a bone in, whatever. It's okay. It's okay with Jack as long as you're a Republican. However, you get my point. So if the government itself, Donald Trump's administration, is suppressing John Bolton's book, is censoring John Bolton's book, then free speech is dead in this country. Because that is the government intruding. John Bolton has the right to say whatever the F he wants. I just want you to know that when history asked him to say what he knew, he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it. He wouldn't show up. He went to a lawyer. He said, and then after the House impeached him, well, I'll show up in the Senate if you subpoena me. And of course, the Republicans have the subpoena power because they have the majority in the Senate. And they chose to have a scam trial, a show trial, a Russian show trial. No witnesses, no documents. Not even John Bolton's manuscript, document. But I mean, if the government, if Donald Trump is choosing to censor Bolton because he knows what's in there is not, it's not amenable to the lies he's been telling, and it makes him look, like an extortionist, like somebody that was extending a bribe, somebody that was using his official office for personal gain, all impeachable high crimes. And he decides that the best way to go about suppressing even more is to censor John Bolton's book through official channels, through his official duties as president of the United States, then free speech is dead. Dead. And that's why when you have the walrus, who is just an F you pay me guy trying to publish, you have to make it clear that you want that thing published only to save free speech, only to protect the First Amendment from this dictator, this demagogue, this tyrant named Trump. Really sick. Both of them. Places in hell. Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.